Hi everybody and welcome to episode 14 of Thought Bubbles, Sparkling Insights into Community Engagement. I'm coming to you today from my office because today is all about what to include in your community engagement strategy. People think a lot of what I do is just getting out and about. It's been a bit of flying around recently, going and meeting with communities, getting people talking, when actually there's often a bit of planning behind it. In fact, there should always be a bit of planning behind it. This has come about because somebody sent me a question asking, what does a good community or consumer engagement plan or strategy look like? They also ask who is responsible for writing it. So really just to clarify what I'm talking about here, this is if you are an organisation that is going to be making a decision about something and you want to involve the community in that decision making process. It's about having a strategy about how you do that. I'll answer that first question first. Who is responsible for writing it? Well, that's kind of like a bit of a how long is a piece of string. There is no actual answer as to who is responsible. Some organisations have a community engagement person in them, many don't. What I always advise is if you can have people as high as possible in the organisation certainly aware or providing input into that community engagement strategy, the more likely that strategy is going to be successful when it actually comes to delivering it. But let's get on to the content of what should be in a community engagement strategy. And I'm going to do a quick top 10 rundown of the things that you should include in that strategy. Okay, so number one is a situation analysis. That's all about setting the scene, why you're doing the engagement, the historical context, if there's been any processes undertaken to date. That just helps you really kind of frame where you're at and what it's about. Number two is your approach to engagement. So that is the level of influence that the community or consumers or whoever it is that you're engaging have over the decision-making process, or the level of influence that they have into that process. The principles and values, anything that you believe in as an organisation in relation to engagement or good practice engagement. Also things like, does the winning vote decide, is this a numbers game or is it about getting quality of input? There's no right answer there. It's about your organisation working out which it is. Then there's section 3, which would be, or number 3, which would be key objectives. That would be things like your aim or your goal. What are you actually trying to achieve with your engagement process? Also to include in this part is what is negotiable in your decision-making process and what's non-negotiable, because that's going to be really, really critical when it comes to actually communicating why you're engaging and what it's about. Number 4. Obvious, but sometimes forgotten. Who are our stakeholders? You can't just say the community. You really need to be specific in who your stakeholders are, who's going to be impacted by the decision that gets made, and who's going to be interested in the decision that gets made. I often use a stakeholder matrix to map stakeholders out. Equally, you can use tiers. You need to prioritise them, identify those people that are going to be most impacted or most interested, and work out kind of who are your number 1, number 2, number 3 stakeholder groups. You'll find a way to do it, but that's an absolutely essential part. Also the demographics of those stakeholders is useful for you to work out. Number 5, you've got to include something about risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is about identifying any things that could go wrong in your engagement process. Now that could be nobody turns up, or everyone has a go at us, and you need to identify your mitigation strategies to address those risks. So that might be things like, we're going to publicise this as broadly as possible, we're going to do X, Y and Z to do that, we're going to be clear, transparent, we're going to be honest, we're going to be prepared for maybe that abuse that people give us. Not that they will, of course, because you're brilliant. Number 6, the mechanics. What are you actually going to do and how are you going to do it? There's no point in having a strategy if you don't actually know how you're going to implement it, so that's critical. I often break this down into your traditional engagement, your face-to-face engagement, and then any complementary or supplementary online engagement that you're going to do alongside that. At that point, I also include the level to which those tools are helping you to engage with the community. Number 7, how you're going to do the laundry. Lovely Wendy Sarkisian, I think you taught me this one. It's all about doing the laundry. After you've done your engagement, you're going to have heaps and heaps and heaps of input from different sources. How are you going to sort all of that out, collate it and prepare it into a report for your decision maker? It's worth planning that in advance. Number 8, you've got to include how you plan to close the loop with the people that have been involved in your engagement process. It's not just good manners, but it's good practice to let them know how their input into your process has made that final decision making process happen or easier, or how it's affected that decision making process. Number 9, evaluation and measuring success. How are you going to know that this engagement process has been a success? And number 10, your operations. So I often do this as a kind of appendices. This is about your timeline of rollout of delivery and your decision making timeline, and of course your budget. And that again is how long is a piece of string. I often say to people, you could have a budget of $1 million or you could have a budget of $50 and you can do something good with it. I hope that's helped. Bit over time today, but it was a big one to cover. See you soon.